So I prepared this little presentation to give you a general context of for the report that Tali and I generated. All this contextual information is in the report, but I wanted to kind of give you a quick video presentation so that we kind of can be on the same page. So this is the sort of the model that we used when we were looking at industrial engineering programs. Our industrial engineering programs. You can see that we have the world, that is, our planet, and then within that is both engineering and education, and the cross between that is engineering education. And then you can see industrial engineering is showing up there as part of engineering, but also into engineering education. Then the other thing is that we have Cal Poly that crosses over industrial engineering and our programs, and also education in general, and then other IE programs, and then IE at Cal Poly. So this is sort of the model we used. I'm going to go through each of these circles and sort of tell you what the general findings are. Now, of course, there's a whole bunch of people writing about all of these contexts. So these are the ones that I put together and just show you, and these are pretty much my opinions, although they're definitely based on a lot of reading and a lot of digesting of the information out there. And not just my opinion, Tali's opinion too. So we start with the world, and I think the main thing that's going to be happening in the world is that actually there's a changing planet. The planet is definitely changing. The place where we live is definitely changing. It's entered a new phase, kind of, and lots of people call it the anthropogenic era. But one of the things that's showing up is there's a huge increase in population, and the forecasts show that population is going to be close to doubling. Right now we're at 7 billion, and it's going to be increasing even faster and faster. And of course there could be definitely things that happen where that doesn't occur, but we're just definitely going to be dealing with increased population. The other thing is we're going to be dealing with increased interconnectedness, that if something happens in one part of the globe, it actually affects the whole globe. And we saw this in the tsunami in Japan, that disrupted supply chains, things like that. So I think that's going to actually cause more, this interconnectedness is going to cause more disruptions for us. And then the last thing is sort of the climate change issues associated with CO2. This is just one representation of climate change. The CO2, historically up 10,000 years ago, it was, those numbers are from ice caps, and the other numbers are from the ice cores and then Mauna Loa. So you can see that about I think it was in June, we hit 400 parts per million, which is way over what the Earth can handle. And so these are going to definitely change. What's going to happen is all these three things together is going to really cause some instability. And so because of that, we're going to need flexibility and definitely a focus on global collaboration, just understanding global issues and understanding interconnectedness. Now, if we look at engineering, there's a lot of people writing about engineering, and most of the things people are writing about are technological changes, technological needs, and technological new products and things. One of the really kind of focused documents is this the Grand Challenges for Engineering that was prepared by the National Academies of Engineering. They got a big panel of people together and talked about what are the challenges in engineering and for the world. And they came up with sort of 5 areas. There's 14 grand challenges, but they're in 5 areas. One is energy. How are we going to supply our energy? Health, associated with how we're going to have better healthcare and better application of health throughout the world. Education. There's some really interesting things on education. One of them is personalized education that I think is something we might want to think about. Safety, both nuclear safety, cybersecurity, things like that. And then environment, looking at nitrogen cycles and how are we going to better handle the planet's changing climates. And then another kind of interesting study that I found was on McKinsey. McKinsey Consulting put together a disruptive technologies, and this is a little bit, I know this is going to be hard for you to read, but it's in the report too, that shows the various disruptive technologies that they think are in the future. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is really probably just maybe 5-10 years out, and we're actually training students to be able to do things that are even farther out than that. And not many people really understand what the sort of the exact technologies are going to be out that time, and so, but there are some trends associated with needing to be more integrated and more systems thinking, and so having to have training students to deal with problems that we don't even really know are there yet, I think is going to be something we need to be thinking about. And then in the area of education, there's some clear trends in education, especially in higher ed. One of them is rising tuition. And this idea that, who is going to be able to afford to go to school and what kind of debt are people going to be taking on. This is a big issue in education. And then that, along with the advent of online education, really brings in questions about who are we as a brick and mortar, is what they call us, a brick and mortar institution, an actual location here at Cal Poly. And then the third area is something Obama said in his recent speech about accountability, that there's going to be increased accountability. Obama's not going quite as far as saying that we need to be careful about what we teach. He's really looking at graduation rates and financial aid links. But I think there's going to be, not just I, but several people are talking a lot about an increased accountability in higher ed. And then particularly in engineering education, if we look at that, like what is needed, and a lot of people have written about this, about what is needed in an engineering education. There's an Engineering 2020 document that's prepared by ASW, I think, could be an AE, but that particular document is pretty comprehensive, and people reference it quite a bit. One of the things is systems thinkers, that they need engineers who can not just be good in their discipline, but think about how that particular discipline affects other things. Integration, which also goes with system thinking, this is a big deal. And then, of course, high technical ability is definitely something we always need to maintain in engineering education. But these are things that sort of aren't quite there yet, that people are saying we need to focus on more. And then, so if we look at industrial engineering, one of the things that comes up quite a bit is us as integrators and us as flexibility. So students are not probably going to be staying in the same job forever, and they need to understand how to transfer skills from one area to another, identify problems, things like that. And particularly if I took a look at this is from Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is data on industrial engineering and by sector, where are the jobs going to be over the next 20 years. And this shows an increase and decrease in jobs by sectors. So you can see that there's going to be an increase. I don't know if you can read this, but it says professional services, information, transportation, production, manufacturing, consulting, non-metal plastics, and metal production. Transportation. So those are going to be areas where there's going to be an increase in jobs for IEs, and then a decrease in jobs in IEs. We have food and chemical manufacturing, and then electronic manufacturing, products manufacturing. So looking at this sort of as the way of where are students going to be getting jobs. So professional services is an interesting thing, and it's a little bit difficult from the Bureau of Labor Statistics to look at what is in that, except for Tally and my interpretation of that is that it's going to be like contract workers, people who move from industry to industry, giving their services. So it's like lean consultants or something, that they give their industrial engineering services to an industry. So it requires a lot of, how do you become an independent contractor? How do you run your own business? And that's what we're interpreting that as, and it might be interesting to try to focus on that. So the next thing then is looking at Cal Poly. So, we're actually part of the system ourselves, and what are the changes associated with Cal Poly? And one of them definitely is there's financial pressure. This is just a picture of tuition, but from our end, we know that there's constant pressure to be more efficient and to do things just more efficiently. And then another thing that seems to be coming out of Cal Poly is an increase in reputation. And this not only associates with Cal Poly, but there's other people that say that because brick and mortar institutions are going to face more competition, that looking at your reputation is going to be an important thing. And you can see Cal Poly is a little bit more focused on athletics lately as part of the reputation equation. And this is something that we might want to think about as industrial engineers. How can we actually enhance our own reputation? And so then looking at this whole model, one of the next things to look at is other IE programs. And Tally and I did a pretty extensive analysis on that, and we're excited to share that with you. It's actually in the paper too. But then comparing that also to IE at Cal Poly, how do those things work together? And we'll give a little presentation on that to you at the retreat, and we look forward to having a really deep conversation about these things. Bye.